Pranams to all the participants of this online Valmiki Ramayana class. I would like to thank you for your attendance. This is our session 3. We have completed 2 sessions, session 1 and session 2. Now, I hope all of you, wherever you are in this world, all of you are healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally, and able to cope with whatever challenges that you face in your life. Now, in our Sanatana Dharma, there are various schools of thoughts. We have Vaishnavism, we have Shaivism, then you have Shaktism, then you have what you call the Ganapatyas, Kaumaras, Sauras, various schools of thoughts. So Ramayana, as a scripture, is not only applicable to what we call the Vaishnavites, but for all the other schools of thoughts in Sanatana Dharma as well. So in a Purana that is called Bhagavata Purana, it is mentioned that devotional service consists of 9 processes. It is defined by Prahlada Maharaja, Prahlada, son of Hiranyakapisu. He said that Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, Hara Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Daksham, Atma Nivedam. Meaning that hearing is the first, which is very important. Hearing about the pastimes of the Lord, Lord Rama, Lord Krishna. This is called the first stage, that is Sravanam. Sravanam means hearing. Then singing or reading, Kirtanam. Then we have Vishnu Shmaranam, remembrance of the pastime of the Lord. These are the 3. Of course, there are others that includes worshipping His feet. Then offering worship and prayers, becoming His servant, Daksham, becoming His friend, Sakyam, and Atmanivedam, surrendering towards Him, surrender or Saranagati. So hearing Ramayana, reading Ramayana is always auspicious, and it is part of devotional service. Devotional service is not just doing pujas, but all these process, especially the first 3 are very, very important. That is hearing, Sravanam, Kirtanam, singing, and then Vishnu Shmaranam, remembrance of the Lord. Okay, now let us go into our session for today. Let us start with salutations to Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. Vakratunda Mahakaya, Suryakodi Shamaprabha, Nirvikam Gurume Devo, Sarvakayeshu Sharvada. Saraswati Namostubhyam, Varadhe Kamarupine, Vidyarambam Karishyami, Siddhir Bhavadu Mishada. Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum, Shashivaranam Chaturbujam, Prasanna Vadanam Dhyaye, Sarva Viknopa Shantaye. Let us salute Lord Hanuman. It is always said that wherever the names of Rama or Ramayana is being read, there will be an invisible presence of Hanumanji with tears of devotion flowing down his eyes. Yatra yatra Raghunama Kirtanam, tatra tatra kusamasta kanjalim, Bashvavari paripurna lochanam, Marutihim namatta raksha shantakam. Let us salute Valmiki, the author of Valmiki Ramayana. Pujantam Rama Rameti, Maduram Maduraksharam, Aruya Kavita Shakam, Vande Valmiki Kokilam. So before we go into session 3, let us review what we have covered in session 2 last week. In session 2, we have looked at chapters 19 to 37 of Balakandam. In session 1, we looked at chapter 1 to chapter 18. Session 2, we looked at chapter 19 to chapter 37. So what are the areas that we have covered in chapter 19 to chapter 37? We learned that in chapter 19, arrival of Vishwamitra to Ayodhya to meet Dasaratha in order to request services of Rama to guard his yajna. Dasaratha in the beginning promised he will do whatever that Vishwamitra requested. And then when Vishwamitra requested Rama, he wanted Rama to be sent with him to protect the yajna. Dasaratha was actually, he was in a state of shock. He did not want to send Rama. So he wanted to go back against the word that he has given. In the beginning, he gave his word. He said that I will do whatever that you request. So when Vishwamitra requested for Rama, he was not what he called, he didn't want to send Rama because of his love for Rama. And then he said Rama was not even fit to go for war. At that time, Rama's age was only 12. But Dasaratha said Rama is not yet 16 to go for a war. So Vishwamitra will get angry, and then later Vashishta will interfere and then will persuade Dasaratha to send Rama with Vishwamitra. And then later what will happen is that not only Rama, Lakshmana will also be sent together with Vishwamitra. And Vishwamitra will teach Rama and Lakshmana various, astras and shastras. Vishwamitra will teach Rama and Lakshmana Bala and Adibala. And then they will go to confluence of Ganga and Sarayu river. And then the legend of Tadaka will be narrated by Vishwamitra. And then Rama will kill Tadaka. And then Vishwamitra in chapter 27 and 28 will teach Rama more missiles, various missiles, including Brahmastra and other missiles would be taught to Rama by Vishwamitra, including the art of using it and also withdrawing it. Okay, it's very important. Learning missiles, you have to learn. Rama has been taught complete knowledge about the missiles. Okay, how to invoke and how to revoke, how to use and how to withdraw. Like if you are looking at the story from Mahabharata, we find that Ashwatthama, when he released the Brahmastra, when later Vyasa requested him to withdraw the Brahmastra, he was not able to do it because he only learned halfway. He did not complete his lesson, even through his father, Dronacharya. And also in Mahabharata, we learn Abhimanyu was killed because he knew how to enter into Chakra Yuga, but he was not able to get out of it. So he learned when he was in the womb of Subhadra, Arjuna was talking about Chakra Yuga, and after that Subhadra will sleep, and then Arjuna did not continue. So he only had half knowledge of it. So it is very important in whatever field that we learn to have a complete knowledge. This is one of the lessons that we can learn from here. Now, after that, in chapter 29, the legend of Vamana Avatara will be narrated by Vishwamitra to Rama and Lakshmana. And then chapter 31, Rama will safeguard the rituals of Vishwamitra. He will kill Subahu and then will hurl Maricha to many yojanas, about more than 100 yojanas. One yojanas is equivalent to about 8 miles. So 100 will be about 800 miles. So and then Rama will travel to Mithila city. And then the legend of Brahmadatta will be described by Vishwamitra. And Vishwamitra's ancestry will also be narrated. Legend of Ganga, but legend of Ganga will be fully narrated from chapters 38 towards chapter 41. Okay, that will be about not chapter 41, chapter 38 to about chapter 45. You will have the narration about Ganga, which we are going to look at in today's session. And then legend of Parvati, Uma and her curse, and how Kartikeya was born. These are the areas that we have covered in session 2. Now, there are some questions. There are only 2 questions that were asked from the chat message in from what they call related to chapter 2. Let me go into, sorry, I go into the let me go into the file for the chat message. Okay, let me look for the chat message. Give me a moment. Chat message. Okay, these are the questions. Okay, one of the question, in your view, why are Rama and Lakshmana inseparable? Okay, now in order to understand this, we need to know who Rama and Lakshmana. Before they came as Rama and Lakshmana as son of Dasaratha. Rama is Vishnu himself. Okay, because Dhyana Sloka of Valmiki Ramayana, if you are able to recall, it says it is when Vishnu came as son of Dasaratha, the Vedas became Ramayana. So Rama, Vishnu came as Rama. The Deva surrendered to what they call Vishnu and requested him to appear as Rama. So when Vishnu came as Rama, Seshanaga, Ananda Sesha came as Lakshmana. So both of them are inseparable. So it is said Lakshmana is an avatara of Seshanaga, the serpent upon whom Vishnu rests in ocean of milk. Seshanaga is king of all Nagas, and both of them are inseparable. So when Vishnu came as Rama, Ananda or Seshanaga came as Lakshmana. And when Vishnu later came as Krishna, Seshanaga, Ananda came as Balarama. So there was a saying that because of the service of Lakshmana to Rama in Treta Yuga, the Lord decided that he needs to serve his brother in the next Yuga. That is when Krishna came, he served Balarama. So the services of Lakshmana in Treta Yuga, Krishna served his brother Balarama. So Balarama is also Ananda, Seshanaga. In previous birth, Balarama was Lakshmana. So we find one incident in Ramayana in Yuddhakandam when Lakshmana was injured on the battlefield and almost died. Rama wept and confessed that he could live without the riches in Ayodhya and he could live even without Sita, but he cannot live without his brother Lakshmana on his side. So they are both inseparable. Okay, now there are a lot of other stories about Lakshmanas too. Who actually Lakshmana and why Lakshmana have to appear? For example, if you look into some of the version, it says only Lakshmana can kill Meghanand. Meghanandan. Meghananda is the son of Ravana, who is also known as Indrajit. Because this is not stated in Valmiki Ramayana, but if you look into some other versions of Ramayana, it is mentioned that Indrajit can only be killed by somebody who have not been sleeping for the past 14 years, who did not sleep for the past 14 years and who have been brahmacharya. So only Lakshmana could do that, because Lakshmana is said he did not sleep for the past 14 years during the Vanavasa, during the what we call banishment of Rama. And also he was a brahmacharya for 14 years. But this is not mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana. Valmiki Ramayana never mentioned that. So Valmiki Ramayana you will find incident in Ayodhya Kanda where Rama will awaken Lakshmana who was asleep. There is one particular sloka you will find in Ayodhya Kanda, if I'm not mistaken, in chapter 46 of Ayodhya Kanda. Okay, right. We will come into that story related to Rama, related to Lakshmana, why Lakshmana, the story about Nidra Devi and Lakshmana. Nidra Devi is a goddess of sleep. Okay, it is said that Lakshmana negotiated with Nidra Devi that his wife Urmila will sleep for 14 years instead of Lakshmana. So he actually gave his sleep to Urmila, his wife. But that is not mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana. But we can take it as other versions of Ramayana did mention about that. All right. Now, another question is that there are various scriptures describe Kartikeya's birth differently, which is correct. Okay. Please advise how do I reconcile the different account of his birth. Okay. We will take from the Idihasas. Okay. Because when you want to look at the information which is correct, there have conflict between what is mentioned in the Idihasas and Puranas. If there are conflict between Idihasas and Puranas, the Idihasas will be to be followed. Idihasas is to be followed, not the Puranas. But if there are conflict between the Idihasas and the Vedas has to be followed. Okay, Vedas is the Shruti, what was heard. Idihasas are the Smritis, what was remembered. So if there are conflict between the Shruti and the Smriti, Shruti will prevail. So if you are looking into the Idihasas, for example, if you take Ramayana and the Mahabharata, it is mentioned that Kartikeya is son of Lord Shiva and Parvati, but from Ganga. So how this is possible? If you look at that particular chapter, chapter 37 and 38, 37 and 38 of Balakanda of Srimad Valmiki Ramayana, it is mentioned that the Lord Shiva's energy was so strong that the Devas, fearing the result, sent Agni to interrupt the Shiva's union with Parvati. Agni received the energy and dropped it in Ganga, incubates in Ganga, preserved by the heat of Agni, and the fetus was born as Kartikeya on the banks of Ganga. Okay, this is what mentioned in Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana. Okay, in Devi Bhagavata Purana, it is mentioned that Parvati Devi is a progenitor of all the other goddesses, all the other Devis, including Ganga. So Parvati is a daughter of Himavan. Himavan is a Himavan mountain. Ganga is also a daughter of Himavan. So Parvata means mountain, daughter of Himavan. Okay, I hope that answers the question asked by one of the participants. So there were only 2 questions asked during our previous session. Now let us go into our session for session 3. We are going to look into Balakandam. Chapters to be covered will be chapters 38 to chapters 50. What are the key stories that we are going to look at in these chapters? In these chapters 38, 39 up to 44 will be all about description of descent of Ganga unto earth and how Bhagirath, before Bhagirath, we need to learn about Sagara, the grandfather, great grandfather of Bhagirath. Okay, Sagara wanted to do Ashwamedha Yagya, but the horse will be taken by Indra. And then his sons, he had 60,000 sons, 60,001 sons. Okay, went to search, and then they found the horse was with Kapila in the ashram of Kapila. They thought Sage Kapila was the one who stole the horse. And Kapila, they wanted to hurt Kapila, but Kapila merely by his look, hum with a sound, burned all the sons of Sagara. Okay, and Ansuman, the grandson of Sagara went for a search, and he was told by Garuda that his uncles were all killed by Kapila. The only way they can attain heaven is to bring Ganga. So Ansuman did austerity. He was not able to do it. And then his son Dilipa also was unable to do it. And Bhagirath, Ganga is also known as Bhagirathi. So Bhagirath, through his superhuman effort, brought Ganga to earth. Okay, and then chapter 44, Brahma will commend Bhagirath. And chapter 45 will be about churning of milk ocean. It is not described in detail as in Bhagavata Purana and also other Puranas, but you will find some information about churning of milk ocean in chapter 45. Then chapter 46 and 47 will be about legend of Maruts, the wind gods. Okay, and 48, 49 will be about legend of Ahalya. Ahalya will be cursed by her husband, Gautama, okay, because of Indra, which we will be looking at it later. And chapter 49 and 50 will be about redemption of Ahalya from her curse. And part of chapter 50 will be Rama with Vishwamitra, Lakshmana will be going to kingdom of Mithala, and then will meet the Janaka Maharaja from Mithala. Okay, these are the chapters that we are going to look into in this session, in session 3. Let us look at chapter 38. Okay. Now, in chapter 38, Vishwamitra, after having narrated the story of birth of Kartikeya or Muruga in southern part of India, South India, Kartikeya is known as Muruga. There are many temples for Kartikeya or Muruga in southern part of India. Okay, he continues to tell another story of the descent of Ganga, which will be next 7 chapters, including chapter 38. So Vishwamitra will narrate the story of a mighty king called Sagara. Sagara is one of the ancestors of what we call Rama. So if you are looking into ancestors of Rama, in next session, session 4, before the marriage of Rama and Sita, the lineage of Dasaratha will be described. And at the same time, you will also be hearing the lineage of Janaka Maharaja. Okay. Now, Sagara, one of the ancestors of Rama, he was without a heir to his throne. Though he had 2 wives, one is called Kesini. Kesini was a daughter of King Vidarbha. So King Vidarbha is a kingdom. Currently, if I'm not mistaken, in India, Vidarbha is somewhere closer to Maharashtra area, Vidarbha. So Vidarbha, the King Vidarbha, we will also find in the Mahabharata. His name was Bhishmaka. Bhishmaka had a daughter called Rukmini and 5 sons. 5 sons, one of the eldest son called Rukmi. Rukmi is the eldest son. And he has many other sons. Also start with the name Rukmi, all with the name Ruk. Okay, Rukmini was a daughter of Bhishmaka, King Vidarbha. And if you look at in Nala Charitra, in Vanaparva of the Mahabharata, story of Nala and Damayanti, Damayanti also comes from Vidarbha kingdom. Okay, also known as a princess of Vidarbha kingdom. So Vidarbha, daughter of Vidarbha. And then another wife name was Sumati. Sumati was a daughter of sage Arishtanemi. Arishtanemi is a brother, is related to Garuda. Say, Garuda is a son of Vinata through Kashyapa. Kashyapa Muni had a wife called Vinata and also Kadru. Kashyapa Muni also had a wife called Diti and Aditi. From Aditi, you get the Devas came. From DT, all the Asuras came. Okay, and we also learned that this Kasyapa was also the father of sage Vibandaka, okay, who was the father of Risha Singha. That we learned in the what they call session 1. Okay, and we also learned that Kasyapa is also the father of sage Arishtanemi. So Garuda and Arishtanemi are related. Garuda directly from Kashyapa Vinata, Kashyapa, son of Vinata. Vinata had 2 sons. One is called Garuda. Garuda is the second son. The first son known as Aruna. Aruna was deformed because Vinata was looking at the other wife of another wife of Kasyapa called Kadru already had born from her all the serpents. So Vinata wanted to have a child quickly. So she actually, what he called, hid the egg, and Aruna had to come out, but he was not fully formed. He actually is deformed from his thigh onwards. So Aruna later became the charioteer of sun gods. Okay, so Garuda was the second child of Vinata, and story of Garuda will be narrated in Mahabharata. If you look at in Adi Parva Mahabharata, the legend of Garuda will be narrated. How he went to what they call Indraloka in order to get the Amrita, the nectar, so in order to what they call release his mother Vinata from slavery of Kadru. Okay, that is from Mahabharata. Okay, now King Sagara undertook austerities, and pleased with him, sage Bhrigu Muni bestowed a strange boon. One of the boon was that one of your wife will give to one son for the perpetuation of your clan, and the other will give birth to 60,000 sons. Okay, you might be wondering, how is it possible? So as I mentioned to you in the previous session, people can take as it is, or if you want to look into, you might even say it can be, it is like an exaggeration of the poet, many sons. But there are people who take the Puranas and also Vedanta as it is. There is no harm in this, no harm in that. It all depends on how do you look at it. Maybe in a current state, we might not be able to digest some of the information. Some of the information, like for example, Dasaratha ruled Ayodhya for 60,000 years. And then Rama ruled, after Dasaratha, after Paduka, Rama ruled the Ayodhya for 11,000 years. 11,000 years, it can be many years. Some people say it is an exaggeration of poet. But there are people who are convinced based on their way of looking into the scriptures. Yes, those days in Treta Yuga, it is said that people can live up to 100,000 years. In Kali Yuga, they cannot live more than 100 years. It's difficult to live more than 100 years. Dwapara Yuga, people used to live about 1,000 years. Because the calculation of Yuga, you say Kali Yuga is 432,000 years. 2,000 the age of Kali Yuga is Dwapara Yuga, and 3 times the age of Kali Yuga is Treta Yuga. So it is said that Treta Yuga people used to have long life. Okay, and they can do austerity, tapasya for many thousands of years. Okay, now depending on how you are going to take it, 60,000 sons of what we call Sagara. And then Kesini gave birth to a son called Asamanja. Okay, and Sumati to 60,000 sons. Now, Asamanja was a wicked child. He was naughty, and he used to drown children in river Sarayu. But his son, Ansuman, was a pious person, noble, and was greatly loved by the people of Ayodhya. So what King Sagara did, he banished Asamanja from his kingdom. And Asamanja later became a sage. So there is also a story about Asamanja, but it is not narrated in Valmiki Ramayana. You can find story of Asamanja in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 8. He will become a sage. He wanted to become a sage. In order for him to go and practice, do tapasya, he actually was forced by himself. He forced himself to be banished to the king, banished from the kingdom. So it is said that when he left the kingdom, he managed through his power of tapasya, he managed to bring back all the children that he used to drown in river Sarayu. And then, of course, later King Sagara lamented on his decision to banish his son. So Asamanja's son was called Ansuman. Ansuman became the next king. So why I'm putting this particular slide here is that those days, king have to take care of the well-being of the citizens. The happiness of the king is happiness of the people is the happiness of the king. If you are able to recall from one of the sloka from the Arthasastra of Kautilya, it is said that Praja Shuke Shukam Raja. Praja is happy, king must be happy. The same also applied to Rama when he had to banish Sita. But of course, that episode we will take it later stage when we go into Yuddhakandam of Ramayana. So King Sagara wanted to perform Ashwamedha Yajna. So the horse was entrusted to the care of Ansuman, his grandson. Indra, as usual, whenever someone wants to do a yajna, wants to gain certain powers, he is always afraid they are going to take over his position. So Indra is a politician. He is always have a fear that other people is going to come and based on their tapasya or austerity, they will take away his position. So what happened was that Indra stole the horse at the critical point of the yajna. So the king sent for the 60,000 sons and commanded them to go and comb the earth to find the horse. So remember that the word here is like, use here, comb the earth. They actually destroyed the earth. They were digging everywhere. So the 60,000 of what they call sons of Sagara fell to their task, not finding the horse on the earth. They began to dig the earth. Seeing this ruthless destruction, the Devas prayed to Brahma, "Oh Lord Brahma, life on earth is being destroyed by these sons of Sagaras. Aquatic creatures, subterranean creatures are tormented too. Suspecting that these or that may be the enemy of the horse, right? Here or there, the horse may be hidden. They are doing great harm to the living being." So all the Devas prayed to Lord Brahma. Look at what the sons of Sagaras are doing. They are destroying this earth. So what they call Sagara or even Brahma said, we'll look into the next chapter. But before that, there were in session 1, a participant asked about Ashwamedha Yajna. What Ashwamedha Yajna? So if I'm going to take from the commentary of Krishna Sharma in Valmiki Ramayana, read valmikiramayana.organization.org. He said that the Ashwamedha Yajna is simply a political tool that was used to bring big kingdom under the rule of a large empire. So any king who was convinced of his strength will set a horse free to roam. All the areas that the horse wandered around were claimed by the king, unless the king of that land put up a challenge. So in that process, big kingdom becomes parts and provinces of the larger kingdom with minimum bloodshed in the process. So if you are looking into the modern context, maybe we can look at it from the context of mergers and acquisition process of the business. small business, small or big business are eaten by large corporations. Now coming back to the what they call the Sagara sun destroying the earth. So in this chapter, Devas will be assured by Brahma that all the diggings of the earth indiscriminately by sons of Sagara they will be punished by Kapila, Sage Kapila in form of a Vishnu. Sage Kapila is an incarnation of Vishnu. This is described in Srimad Bhagavata Purana. In Srimad Bhagavata Purana, in Canto 3, we will find teachings of Lord Kapila to his mother Devahuti. Okay, so when sons of Sagara, what he called, they destroyed the earth, digging here and digging there. They went to a place where Kapila, Lord Kapila's ashram or hermitage was. They saw the horse being roaming around near the ashram of Sage Kapila. They thought Sage Kapila was a thief of the horse. So what happened was that Sage Kapila, by merely looking at sons of Sagara, burned all the sons of Sagara. So actually there are lessons for us to learn here in this particular chapter from what Brahma said. One of the lessons is that we have to take care of the earth. So here it says that those who are endowed with a vision see that thoughtless people who are guilty of crime against the earth will be justly punished, just like how sons of Sagara were punished by Kapila. So environmental protection is mentioned here in this chapter in what they call Balakanda of Valmiki Ramayana, chapter 40. Valmiki Ramayana mention about the importance of environmental protection. Okay, why and how you should protect the earth. Okay, now chapter 41. Okay, King Sagara will send his grandson Ansuman in search of his son and the horse. Now Ansuman will learn about the death of his uncles and get advice from Garuda. So remember, Garuda is related. Garuda is related because of Sage Arishtanemi. They are related. Okay. Garuda will tell Ansuman that in order to deliver them, for them to go to heaven, only Ganga can send them to heaven. So Ganga at that time was not in the earth. Ganga was in the heaven. So what happened was Ansuman returns to his grandfather with the horse. He managed to bring the horse. He met Kapila. Kapila himself said that only Ganga can deliver that. So he told the fate of the 60,000 sons of Sagara, who is his uncles. So Sagara grieves the death of his son and contemplates a yagya, but he could not bring Ganga to earth. He was not able to bring Ganga to earth during his lifetime. So after Sagara's demise, what happened? People elected Ansuman to occupy the throne. He, for his part, also engaged in austerity over a number of years in order to bring Ganga down. But he passed away before the austerity bore fruit. So what happened after Ansuman? His son called Dilipa. Okay, Dilipa. Dilipa became the king. And he was also not successful. So on his death, Bhagirath ascended the throne. Now comes Bhagirath. Bhagirath is a grandson of Sagara, great-grandson of Sagara. So it said that in those days, king would be ruling the kingdom, will bear the burden of all the responsibility and enjoying the glory on the other hand. So king has a lot of responsibility for his citizens, So many responsibility of the king. It is not easy to become a king. King is not an easy life. Okay, it's a full of responsibility. The responsibility of the king, as he stated, is to take care of the kingdom, take care of these people. When there are wars, king is the one who will have to go in front, not ordering his generals to go and fight the war. So kings at that times were considered to be a great rishis, Raja rishis. They will do severe tapasya. Okay, they don't just enjoy the kingdom. But if we take Bhagirath, what Bhagirath did was that Bhagirath entrusted the kingdom to his ministers, and then he went to do severe tapasya. Okay, chapter 43 mentions that Bhagirath went to Himalayas to perform intense austerities to bring Ganga down, also to get offspring, to get a son. And after several years of doing tapasya, Bhagirath was adamant that he wants to bring Ganga down in order to make sure that his ancestors, not his what he call grand uncles, will be ascended to heaven. So after several years of great tapasya, Brahma appeared, and Brahma granted the boon of his choice. Bhagirath chose the boon he had in mind. He wanted Ganga to come down to earth. So Brahma said, here is Ganga. Ganga can come. But will you or anyone will be able to withstand the impact on her descent upon earth? So he said, only Lord Shiva will be able to withstand the impact of Ganga. So now, after that, what Bhagirath did, he again undergone tapasya. Now he was doing tapasya in order to meet Lord Shiva himself. So after doing severe austerities, it is said that he stood on the tip of his toe for 1 full year. And Lord Shiva was invoked, and Lord Shiva came and he appeared before Bhagirath, and he said, "O Bhagirath, I shall fulfill your noble wish and bear Ganga on my head." So what happened after that was that Bhagirath led Ganga on earth, and the chariot driven by Bhagirath passed near the hermitage of sage Jhanu, who was engaged in severe tapasya. The waters of Ganga inundated the hermitage. Annoyed at this, the sage drank the entire river, which thus disappeared within him. On the request of Celestials, sage Jhanu allowed Ganga to emerge from his hair. So one of the name of Ganga is Jhanavi. Why Ganga is called Jhanavi? Because she came out from the ears of sage Jhanu. And then Ganga followed Bhagirath's chariot. They eventually reached the tunnel made by sons of Sagara, and Bhagirath reached the culmination of his superhuman effort, and holy Ganga actually flowed over the ashes of Sagara's son, who were instantly purified and liberated. So what happened here is that Bhagirath did what his grandfather, great-grandfather Sagara could not do, what his grandfather Ansuman could not do, and what his father Dilipa could not do. Bhagirath means someone who has accomplished his mission. Bhagirath is a one who never accepts defeat. So this is the story of Bhagirath and how Bhagirath brought Ganga down to earth. So The impact of Ganga, only Lord Shiva will be able to bear. So, but this is Ganga descended to earth. The crocodile is the vehicle of Ganga Devi. So, in chapter 44, Brahma appeared and showers profound praise on Bhagirath for overcoming all obstacles by superhuman effort by bringing down Ganga from heaven, in which his ancestors like Sagara, Ansuman and Dilipa failed. He said, Holy Ganga will also be known as Bhagirathi. So Ganga is not only known as Ganga, also known as Jahnavi, and also known as Bhagirathi. Bhagirathi because as a daughter of Bhagiratha, because Bhagiratha who brought Ganga down to earth. So Brahma also said this is a Palashruti of reading the 7 chapters related to descent of Ganga to earth. So Lord Brahma says this. He said that whoever listens to this glorious account of Bhagiratha's unprecedented, superhuman, determined and successful attempt to achieve the task set for himself will have all his desires fulfilled, all his sins wiped out, and will enjoy fame and longevity. This is what said by Lord Brahma. But of course, as I said, one have to read Ramayana with devotion. There are a lot of Palashruti of reading Ramayana. Certain chapters, not only chapters, certain books of Ramayana. There are many Palashrutis, benefits of reading it. In fact, reading Rama Pattabhisheka or reading Ramayana itself, there are a lot of what you call benefits, but you have to read with full devotion. It is not only Ramayana, but also the Mahabharata, the Bhagavata Puranas, and also other Puranas. There will always be mentioned after reading this, there will be what are the benefits of reading that particular chapter. If you are able to read this particular chapter from Valmiki Ramayana, the complete chapters, you can also find from the Valmiki Ramayana.net or read Ramayana, the PDF, what they call notes, not the notes, the translation that I have sent to you. You can read that particular chapter with devotion. Definitely, the Lord will indirectly fulfill your desire, and all that is mentioned here will be achieved. Now we learn about Bhagiratha. Bhagiratha's effort is a superhuman effort. So in case if you want to do a task and that task looks impossible, remember Bhagiratha. What used to be impossible was possible by his tapasya. Tapasya means austerity. Remember Ramayana itself, Valmiki Ramayana itself starts with the first word tapasya. Tapashva dhyaya niratam. Tapashvin vakvidam maram. Naradam paripaprabhya Valmiki munipungava. Tapasya means austerity. Everything, anything that you want, there is no shortcut. You need to do tapasya. Of course, there are people who are lucky based on their previous, what you call, karma and other things that we can look at. But there is no shortcut. Tapasya, austerity. Session 4, we are going to learn about story about Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra, due to his tapasya, he managed to attain the status of Brahma Rishi. Okay. Now we are going to look at very breakout session. I'm not sure how long, but I don't want to take it too long. There are people who likes breakout session. I look at the chat notes, the notes from the chat. I can give 10 minutes, okay? And then I have to rush through the other parts on this discussion, this topic. Now, this breakout session is also an opportunity, as I told you, to interact and meet with participants from many other countries. You might be meeting some of them for the first time. take time to interact and also discuss on this particular discussion topics. So in this discussion topic, people are of three categories. Number one, there are people who are cowards, who do not begin the work at all. They don't want to do anything. Okay, afraid that some trouble may arise midway. That's category number one. Category number two, there are people who will begin their work, but later they will give up the task, afraid of difficulty that might arise. Okay, they will do, but they will give up later on. They don't want to proceed. Category three, the brave people who belong to this category, like Bhagirath. Bhagirath, he did not give up. He continued to work in spite of army of difficulties. And finally, he achieved the goal that he set. That's why we say brave people continue to work in spite of any difficulty in order to achieve their goals. And this type of people can achieve wonders once they put an effort and dedication. Okay? Now, if you have been in category 1 and 2, if you have been in a past, some people, every one of us must have been in category 1 and 2. And there are tasks we go into category 3. So if you have been in category 1 and 2, try to describe in your group the type of values, attitude, belief system that you need to develop within you to move into category 3, or even to teach people to move from category 1 to category 3. So can we have a breakout session, sir, in 10 minutes? So I don't see a breakout session here this time around. Let me check the chat. Breakout session. Can we have a breakout session, short while? Mr. Shiv Prakashji?
Haji, yeah, maybe
yes.
you want a breakup session?
Short breakup, maybe we put 7 minutes.
Breakup right now, we have got 45 participants. We will have like, 5.
We can have 5 groups will be enough, sir. 5 groups.
5 groups, right? Okay.
5 groups for about 8 minutes. But we are running out of time, 8 minutes. So it should be okay.
Seven minutes each?
7 minutes, okay. 7 minutes should be okay.
Okay.
Okay. Can join the breakout session. In another 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, 2 minutes.
The rooms are open.
Okay, can open now. Can open.
Done.
Okay. Okay, everybody's coming back now. All right. Okay, everybody's back. So I see 20 here, 20. Some of them still in discussion.
I'll close all the rooms. What about it?
Okay,
Like close?
all are back. Oh. Okay, let us continue because we have half an hour. I will complete the remaining part because for session 3, descent of Ganga is the main. And then another important component of session 3 will be the bird of the samudra, what do you call the churning of the Milk Ocean, and also the what you call Ahalya's incident. Okay, these are the three main part of session 3. Now let me continue my session looking into Bhagirath. This is something I just added about Bhagirath. Important to learn some lessons from Bhagirath. Work must be done in massive quality and quantity as Bhagirath, but selflessly. Brave people continue to work in spite of even an army of difficulty and finally achieve their goals. Man can achieve wonder, man or woman can achieve wonders once he or she puts in effort and dedication. Another important thing that we can learn from here is that one must never be proud of one's strength or qualities, or else you will be humiliated like what happened to Ganga. Ganga thought she was very powerful, but she was controlled by Lord Shiva. And then let us all put effort, learn all the good quality, and learn that nothing is impossible. Okay, now let us move to the chapter 45. Now in chapter 45, Vishwamitra with Rama and Lakshmana will cross Ganga. After narrating story about Ganga, they will cross Ganga. They will reach a city that is called Vishala. Rama will ask Vishwamitra to narrate the legends connected to Vishala. Vishwamitra will start narrating the background of the place, including the churning of Milky Ocean, which is a mini part of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, if any one of you want to know more about the churning of Milky Ocean, where Lord Vishnu took the form of Kurma Avatara, you are advised to read that particular book in Srimad Bhagavata Purana. But what we will find in Ramayana, it is a summary. It is a summary whereby it is mentioned that in Satya Yuga there were two sisters, Diti and Aditi. Okay, Kasyapa Muni married Diti and Aditi, and you also learn Kasyapa Muni married Vinata and Katro and others. Okay, now Diti gave Diti and Aditi. Okay, from Aditi the Devas came. From Ditis the Asuras came. They both Suras and Asuras grew up and they had a desire to be free from old age disease and to be immortal. They want to attain immortality. So looking at the milk ocean of milk, they feel if they could find a suitable churning rod and a rope, they could churn the ocean in order to get the nectar from the ocean. Okay, that will confer them immortality. Then what they did was they used Mount Mahendra as the churning rod and serpent Vasuki. Vasuki is what they call brother of what they call Sesha. Okay, as the rope, and they began to churn the ocean. And after that, you learn that at the first, what they call at the first gift of ocean was disappointing when they churned and distressing. Now when they churned the ocean, terrible poison called halahala emerged from the ocean. So they are all afraid and sought the refuge of Lord Shiva, who at once drank the terrible poison, as it were. So he actually did not consume fully the poison. It stayed on his neck. That is why Lord Shiva is called Nilakanta. The name Nilakanta means one with the what they call blue, the poison that he drank. Okay, the churning continued, but Mount began to sink. So what happened? The Devas started to pray to Lord Vishnu, who immediately came in form of a tortoise. That's where Kurma Avadara started. Lord Vishnu took the form of Kurma, okay, and supported the mountain on his back. After a long time, they turned the, what they call the ocean, okay, with the Mahendra, with Lord Vishnu supporting. Many things came out from the ocean. Dhanvantari, Lord Dhanvantari is said to be the incarnation of Lord Vishnu himself. It is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavata Purana. Dhanvantari, it is the father of Ayurveda. Okay, if you look at Ayurveda, all those who study the Ayurveda, they will pray to Dhanvantari. Dhanvantari is a father of Ayurveda who came with the medicine. Okay, then others that came from the churning of the ocean include the celestial nymphs, the Apsaras, and they arose, or they call the liquor that is called Varuni. Demons refused to take it, but the Devas took it. Okay, that is why the demons are called Asuras, did not take the Sura. And the Devas are called Suras because they took the Suras. Means no, did not. Okay. Then followed by divine horse that is called Uchesravas, the divine germ, Kausarva. Later Nectar, which all the Devas and demons saw. And then they began to fight over the nectar. Lord Vishnu then came in form of a Mohini. There is also an avatara that is called Mohini avatara, in order to what they call distribute the the Amrita, the nectars. Okay, the demons who opposed the Lord were defeated, and the gods, the Devas, with Indra as a leader, attains victory. So when the ocean was churned, not only what I have mentioned earlier came, there are many other things came. Kamadhenu, then you have Airavata, the elephant was taken by Indra, Lakshmi was taken by Vishnu. So these are all the things that came from the churning of the ocean. Now that was described in the previous chapter, that is chapter 46. Now we come to chapter 45. 6. Okay, we learned that the sons of Aditi, the Asuras, was killed by the son of Diti, that Asuras, the Devas, in a fight that erupted the turning of the ocean. Now in this chapter, what happened? Because of her sons, she did the tapasya in order to get a son who can kill Indra, the leader among the sons of Aditi. And what happened was that Indra himself came to assist Diti in her austerity. And dutiful and patient service by Indra to his stepmother Diti, though with the intention to disrupt her austerity, pleased Diti, who said that I am performing this austerity in order to get a son to kill you. Yet you have been devotedly serving me all these years. I am pleased with you. I shall therefore ensure that your brother will be friendly to you, that both you and him will conquer the world. Then both of you will conquer the world. But what happened was that, unfortunately, on a particular day, just 10 days before the completion of her austerity, Diti's sleeping posture was unethical and impure, not clean. Something like what happened in a story of Nala. Sunny entered Nala, because when he washed his leg, he left some gap. So that when you wash your leg, make sure you wash thoroughly, clean. Do not leave any gaps. So because of that gap, Sunny entered Nala and then started to torment Nala. She went through a bad period of time after that. So same happens here in a case of Diti. She was not unethical and impure at that time. So what happened was that Indra entered her body through his magic power, and his powerful weapon, that is the Vajrayuda, began to butcher the fetus, his unborn enemy. So Indra cut it into 7 pieces, and then they began to cry. He continued to cut them, telling them, do not cry, Marutha, Marutha. He had to cut them again, each into 7 pieces, 49 pieces. Diti woke up and wailed, do not kill them, do not kill them. When Indra heard her wailing, he emerged from her body and prayed for forgiveness. You had committed an act of negligence and therefore fortified the food Father Kasyapa gave to you. Hence I had to destroy my unborn enemy. kindly forgive me, said Indra to Diti. So in chapter 47, we find that Diti and asked him to make 7 pieces of the fetus to be overseers of the 7 Maruts, 49 Maruts under his command, and Indra obliged her. So Diti realized that it was due to her own fault, so she forgave Indra. So she said that these 49 pieces will be born as wind gods in groups of 7. And you yourself has called them Maruts. So remember that Indra called them Maruts, Marutha. Marutha means do not cry. Okay. So these 7 groups of wind gods will fill the heaven, earth, and intervening space and move about under your direction. Thus Indra and his stepmother reached an understanding. Vishwamitra said, this is that sacred place, O Rama, where Diti performed her austerity and Indra served her. Okay, this chapter ends with Sumati, king of Vishala, receiving Vishwamitra. Okay, this is a narration given by Vishwamitra. We are not going into the main story of Ramayana. These are all stories within stories that are narrated in chapters. Only when we go into chapter 50, 51, then we will go into Rama in Midalapuri, and then later on he will meet with Janaka, and then it will continue to the main stories. These are all the stories where Vishwamitra will narrate, okay, about a particular place and also particular incident that are related to that particular place that Vishwamitra narrated to Rama. In chapter 48, Vishwamitra and Rama, Lakshmana will spend the night at Vishala, kingdom of Vishala. After that, they will leave to Midalapuri, okay, where kingdom of Janaka. Midala is today somewhere closer to Nepal area. That is where the current location of Midala, where Janaka ruled, according to many scholars. Okay, Rama saw abundant hermitage and asked Vishwamitra, oh, whose hermitage was this? With a delighted heart, Vishwamitra narrated the story in reply. O Rama, this wonderful hermitage to the foremost among sages called Gautama in days of yore. He was living with a faithful and devoted wife called Ahalya. One day, when sage Gautama was absent from the hermitage, Indra, chief of gods, okay, Indra is considered to be very naughty. If you read the Puranas, you will know. Indra will come, not only disrupt the yagas of various munis. In fact, later, in the later chapters, in session 4, we will learn Vishwamitra will perform austerity. Indra himself will go and try to disrupt the yagas of Vishwamitra. First, he'll send Menaka, and then that was successful. And then after that, Vishwamitra will go again into Tapasya. Rama was sent. At that time, it was not successful. So Indra will always try to disrupt the austerity of a Muni. This time, he wanted to destroy the austerity of Gautama Muni in order for Gautama Muni to lose the powers of his austerity. So what will happen is that when Gautama Muni was outside the hermitage, went for his prayers, Indra came in disguise of Gautama, entered the hermitage and sought the union with Ahalya. The devoted Ahalya knew instantly that the man in disguise of Gautama was Indra himself. Yet he yielded to his advances, and she was highly gratified that the chief of Devas had approached her. So Ahalya knew that it was Indra, but still She committed the act, and as Indra was leaving the hermitage, she warned him of Gautama's wrath and requested him to be careful. However, Gautama entered the hermitage as Indra was leaving. As Indra was leaving, Gautama came. In a great anger, Gautama cursed in, assuming my form, you have committed a sinful act. You will die. So looking at his faithful wife, living on air, lying on ashes, unseen by anyone, live here for a long, long time. When, however, Rama, you will regain your purity. Having cursed both of them, sage went away to Himalayas. Now, why Gautama's curse? Because of he cursed Indra and he cursed his own wife. Now, in Valmiki Ramayana, Ahalya knew it was Indra. But to people who are familiar with Kampa Ramayana, written by Kampanath Alwar, Kampa in southern India, in the state of Tamil Nadu, Ahalya in Kampa Ramayana did not know that it was Indra. It was like Indra deceived Ahalya. So Kamban at that time, he had to write according to the customs at that particular time, in that particular time of his writing. But Valmiki, no, Valmiki reported as it is. Some of the original versions of Ramayana, they have provided in a different version, different perspective. Like Kampa Ramayana, it says that Ahalya was completely innocent. She did not know that it was Indra who came in form of Gautama. Okay, that is another topic for us to take, but not for in this chapter. In this chapter, that's the end of this chapter. Now, what happened to Indra? Now, for Ahalya, she was remained unseen. It was not that she was cursed to become a stone. No, in Valmiki Ramayana, it is stated she was cursed to live on air, lying on ashes, unseen by anyone, until Rama comes and she will gain her original form. Okay, this is what mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana, not that she will be cursed to be a stone. Okay. Now, for Indra, in the next chapter, chapter 49, it says that Indra, having lost his virility, pleaded with the Devas and Celestials. And he said, I angered Gautama, who cursed me with a loss of virility. And by doing so, by his austerity, he has lost. Kindly do something by which my virility will be restored. The Devas restored Indra's virility by transplanting it with that of a ram. Okay, story of Indra, chapter 41. Those who are interested to go detail, you can read chapter 49. I've summarized. Now that you are here, O Rama, step into the hermitage. As Rama stepped into the hermitage to greet him, with all her impurity removed, very sight of Rama, she shone with a beauty and splendor. She devotedly worshipped her divine guest. And in the meantime, Gautama also came. Both of them offered their devotion and hospitality to Rama, then resumed their austerity. Rama proceeded towards Mithila. So, story of Gautama and what they call Ahalya is narrated in these chapters. And Ahalya will offer prayer to Rama. The detailed prayer of Ahalya to Rama you will find in Adhyatma Ramayana. Very detailed prayer that she will pray to Rama. Hymns that will be sung by Ahalya to Rama. Okay, and after this incident, after Ahalya was delivered, Ahalya and Gautama were reunited. Rama, together with Lakshmana and Vishwamitra, with other sages who accompanied them, went towards Midhilapuri. So here something about the story of Ahalya and also the Indra. Indra actually represent uncontrolled passion which is outside the bounds of Dharma. Ahalya is akin to ordinary mortal who falls victim to worldly and sensual passion in absence of spiritual awareness. The Gautama is but natural law of karma taking effect. Yet he prescribes a mean for her redemption. Penance and austerity are the antidote for sins once commit, tapasya. Again, back to what the first verse of Ramayana says, tapasya, tapashwa dhyaya niratam, tapasya. Tapasya can, what we call, overcome, not all, some of our past karmas. It can be burned by tapasya. This is what it is teaching us. Penance and austerities are antidote for sins once commits. Through penance, Ahalya evolves by the grace of Lord against attain the state of divine bliss. So what this story actually tells us, this story gives us a hope of salvation for fallen souls with provision that there will be repentance and regret or atonement and performance possible. Just like what happened to Ahalya. She did tapasya, unseen by anybody, lying on air in the ashes until Rama came and delivered her. Okay, now that from what we learn from readramayana.org, according to Krishna Sharma, he said that in his commentary to this particular chapter, he said that the concept of balance and equilibrium of life and universe, it is important. Too much power concentrated at one place or one person is not good for the whole world. Here he is giving some reasons why Indra will always go and interrupt, or will always go and interrupt, and also disrupts the yagyas and also the austerity of sages or even kings. So Indra disrupts the Ashwamedha yagya of what they call Sagara, and then we will also learn Indra wanted to disrupt the yagya of Mahabali, and then he prayed to Vishnu. Vishnu came in form of Vamana Deva in order to do that. And then Indra will do a lot of what they call disruption so that the rishis will not gain the power. But some of the rishis, even with the interruption by Indra, continue to do the tapasya, just like what we are going to learn in session 4 about Vishwamitra Muni. So it is said that if Gautama continues with his tapasya, he would accumulate too much spiritual energy that will disrupt the equilibrium and balance of the universe. And thus, the task of the devas is to maintain that equilibrium. So Indra found no other choice but to incur the wrath of Gautama and bear the consequences. Okay, so there are many slokas in the Ramayana that we will be able to see that there is a need to look into Dharma at the macro context. Krishna looked at Dharma at the macro context in the Mahabharata. Yudhishthira to tell a lie, that is adharma. But he looked at, if Yudhishthira is not going to tell a lie, the Pandavas' army will be crushed by Dronacharya, who was fighting without knowing what being tired is. So he had to tell a lie that Ashwatthama was dead, so that Drona will drop his weapon. That you will find in Mahabharata. So you have to look into Dharma from a bigger context, a macro context of Dharma. Something like earlier Indra killed Vritasura, also because of that. Okay, now in chapter Rama will arrive at Mithila. To you, Mithila, if you are looking into geographically now, it's somewhere closer to Nepal. Okay. Rama, along with Lakshmana, led by Vishwamitra. On hearing that Vishwamitra arrived at the city of Mithila, Janaka proceeds to welcome. On seeing Rama and Lakshmana, Janaka requested Vishwamitra to tell him who these two young princes are. And Vishwamitra announced them as son of Dasaratha and informs about their adventurous deeds the boys have undertaken. He will narrate about how Rama have killed Tadaka and protected the Yagya of Vishwamitra, and all that would be narrated to King of Mithila, that is King Janaka. Okay, that's ended chapter 50, and that also ends session 3. Session 4 will be a very important session, especially the marriage of Rama and Sita will be in session 4. Sorry, not session 4, session 5. Session 4, I will still be narrating the Vishwamitra, the austerity of Vishwamitra. So session 5, we are going to look into the marriage of Rama and Sita, which is a very important session. That is session 5. So Balakanda will end after we have completed session 5. We are now completed 60% of Balakanda. The remaining 40% session, not 60%. So it is almost like the remaining part will be 27 slokas, almost 70% of Balakanda of Ramayana. So Balakanda consists of 77 chapters. Okay, 77 chapters. We have completed chapter 50. Okay, chapter 51 to chapter 65. 65 will be about narration about Vishwamitra, the legend of Vishwamitra, how he became a Brahma Rishi. And then from chapter 66 up to 77 will be marriage of Sita and Rama, and then appearance of Parasurama, and then that will end the Balakanda of Srimad Valmiki Ramayana. Okay, now it is exactly 1.5 hours, because I promised the last session that I will finish within 1.5 hours. So we have completed 1.5 hours for session 3. So remember, when we end, when we chant the name of Rama, 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 it is equivalent to chanting 1,000 names of Vishnu. Like what? Lord Sri Rama, Rama, Rame, Rama Tatulyam, Ramanama Varanane. Jai Sri. Thank you to everyone who attended this session. So we will meet again in our next session. Okay, and we will go into session. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And if you got any question, you can put in the.
If you have questions, feel free to write your questions in the chat section, and I will take it first 10 minutes or less than 10 minutes, 5 minutes during the next session. Thank you, everyone.